Hey there. Sometimes we get questions on that due on sale clause. That'll be in all mortgages and deeds of trust out there today. And it is. In fact, what it means is that if a house is sold without the lender's permission, that the lender has a right to call the loan due. And that's what the due on sale clause is right there. They have the right to call the loan due. In fact, here's the due on sale clause right there. Make sure you can take a photo of it. It's a long clause. And when you get a chance to read that thing, you're going to see that you cannot, there's no way around this. There's no way around this because they got it all figured out. There's several modifications on this thing. But understand, the due on sale clause, very few people even know about it. Sellers don't even know what it is, but that's not the point. They have the right to call the loan due, but that doesn't mean they're going to call the loan due. Believe me when I tell you, a lender does not want property back. They do not want the property. They bend over backwards not to take the property back. It's extremely unlikely they're going to call the loan due as long as somebody's making the payments on it. Because if they're not, they're going to call it due as well. So now we take title to the property in a land trust, and if we're buying it with owner financing, like wraparound mortgage or deed of trust, then our land trust will take title to the property, and the land trust owns the house. You own the land trust in most cases. So regardless of what happens, which the lender could call a loan due, you have to be aware of that. But regardless of what happens, they can't hurt you because your name is not on the loan. And my friends, if you're going to be on Planet Ron, you ain't never going to go guarantee another loan in your life. Period. I'll send a big old ugly guy with a stick out there after you if I catch you doing it. Because that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make is guaranteeing debt. I know you'll see a lot of people online talking against it and just, go buy the house, put up the down payment, pull out some cash, go do it again. That's a recipe for bankruptcy, is what that is. You can buy all the property you want without guaranteeing debt, all right? And the due on sale clause and the underlying mortgage that the seller owes the bank, it does not bother me one iota, because I know it's very unlikely they're going to call the loan due. I have never had a bank call the loan due in all my 42 years. We weren't making payments, though, and sometimes we caught them up and continue to make the payments. But they can't. Now, I want you to write this down and go look for yourself. Garn, G-A-R-N, Saint Germain, Federal Depository Institution Act of 1982. Garn St. Germain, Federal Depository Institution Act of 1982. You might only need Garn St. Germain. That is the law that created the due on sale clause, but along with it came several exceptions to that law. So go right through the exceptions and you'll see. Number one, if I'm putting my house into a trust, land trust for estate planning purposes, they cannot call a loan due. Cannot. Number two, let's say I'm in a second mortgage position and I had to foreclose on the property. Okay, that does not wipe out the first mortgage, but they can't call the loan due either because I have the right to get the property back in foreclosure if they don't make my payments. Number three, inter-family transfers. They won't call the loan due. So go study that because you need that information the rest of your life. Quit worrying about the due on sale clause. Now, let's say, when I buy a house from a seller, which I still owe money to, which means I'm buying it on terms, all the loans have a due on sale clause if they have a loan. Of course, free and clear houses don't have a loan. It's not an issue. All of them, 100% of them. All right? You're going to be hard pressed to find a loan on a house that doesn't have a due on sale clause on it for a lot of years. That doesn't bother me, but it bothers some investors who don't clearly understand it, and certainly some realtors who don't clearly understand it. To me, it's an attractor factor. Kind of like, the reason I can buy a junker cheap is because it's ugly. In the pretty house terms business, sometimes the conditions, like, the loan might be called due, will prevent people from taking action. There's very little that I can't handle on most any house out there. And due on sale clause is the least of my concerns. Now let's say, just to help you sleep better, let's say that the next house you buy, the lender calls the loan due. What to do? Well, first of all, you won't even be named in that suit where they call a loan due because you're nowhere on their record. Remember, land trust owns house. You own land trust. You can't, they don't sue the people that belong to the entity that owns the house. So you got no personal liability here whatsoever. Make sure you keep it that way. Nothing shows on your credit report, but you do have the warranty deed to trustee, so you do own the trust. The trust owns the house, you own the trust. So if they call a loan due, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. First thing you'd want to do is get with the seller. Incidentally, you are the owner of the property now, but they're not going to call a loan due without suing the land trust and suing your seller. So your seller's in this thing with you to get them to go away. So I would get with a seller and say, I'm going to go ahead and countersue them. I'd like to have you join me, whether they join you or not. If they don't join you, then nobody's representing them. I'm going to countersue them. That's the worst case scenario. That is the worst case. That probably will never happen to you. All right, because you know there's some rules out there that if you've been making payments on a house for some amount of time, then they don't have the right to call the loan due. And in other words, my goal is not to get them to extinguish the loan. My goal is just to get them to go away and leave me alone till my tenant buyer cashes them out and keep collecting the payments. All right. Believe me, banks don't want houses. So that won't happen. The first thing I do is I get a hold of the bank and I say, listen, I got a tenant buyer in there. They have the right to buy the property out, and when they get ready to get approved to go get a loan, then obviously your loan will be paid off. In fact, that makes the case for taking your tenant buyer to the lender who wants to foreclose. They're really motivated to get that other loan cashed out. So I don't worry about all that. Honestly, I've never even had to deal with that. But I know when you're in bed at night thinking up all the things that can go wrong, you'll be dealing with it. But let's say that the bank did call a loan due, and they were going to sue, they were going to foreclose. Say, listen, you don't have to foreclose. I'll deed you the property if you want it. Save yourself a lot of grief and closing costs. That's because that's the only thing they can do when they foreclose. Anyway, is take the house back. Now, whether they want to go after the individual, that's up to them. Because in my CYA letter, that's Cover Your Assets letter, which you'll find in my boot camp manual and probably on the Gold Club site as well. You'll see that I've got a big long CYA letter, and one of those things is you understand that there's a due on sale clause in the loan and the bank could call it due. Seller initials it, okay? So therefore the seller was willing to take that risk at that time, and I get one of those anytime that I have an ongoing relationship with a seller or the buyer. I want a CYA letter, acknowledge, and that should keep you out of court right there. So in other words, they can't hurt you. Worst case, you have to give them a house back that you already made a bunch of money on. And if you got a lease option tenant buyer in there, I don't put them in there for more than 2 years. So if the bank wants to call a loan due during that 2 years, then and you won't take the house back, then I got no choice but to either walk away or countersue them. It doesn't cost much to countersue them on an action like this. And then just to get them to cooperate with us. So if you got questions on this, why don't you go ahead and submit them, and I'll get them answered for you. I bet I can give them answers almost as fast as you can write down the questions.